attacks are happening at machine speed, driven by adversarial use of AI, and we need to be able to respond in a similar manner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ONUG Collaborative Working Group Use Case Updates. So this is really for, we wanted to share with everyone. All of the vendor community is now about to enter into the working groups after myself, Peter, and many others have been working very hard during the summer, doing our summer project around taking the use cases that were developed during the last board meeting and creating some really useful projects for the industry. So first, I am Nick Lippis, one of the co-founders and co-chairs at ONUG. And Peter, why don't you say hi?
Yep. Hi, Peter Campbell. I'm a security researcher and advisor to the working groups at ONUG.
Awesome. Peter, you're more than just an advisor. You're kind of like running a lot of the working groups, and I'm so happy to have you involved. You add such a great dimension, perspective, and to keep everything kind of moving along. So
no, thank you, Nick. And this has been fun. You talked about a summer project. This has kind of been like summer camp, right? So we're starting on our journey here.
Yeah, and I tell you, I love our working groups. I gained so much insight from what we're doing in the working groups than on almost anything other than the conference itself. So
I agree. You know what's really unique, and I know we'll get into it a little bit more, Nick, but I mean, it's really got a practitioner focus to it, doesn't it, right? These are people who are actually out there, implementing and feeling some of the pain as well as they're, bringing solutions forward, AI-driven solutions. And we're going to talk a lot about that.
Yeah, I think what you'll see, and in terms of the audience, you'll see is a real life, because like all the folks who are participating in the working groups are not folks who are saying, oh, I'm thinking about doing that. I'd like to see this, it's like, I think this is how it's going to work. These are the folks who are actually doing it. So it is so much different when you have real practitioners who are struggling with a lot of these topics. So let's get into it. First, I want to kind of give you a perspective on kind of how the working groups were established. This is ONUG. This is the largest organization of IT executives within the industry that are collaborating together. So if you're not familiar with ONUG or so, it represents about 600 plus of the global 2000. Combined spend of IT is about $1.5 trillion. So it's a very big buying block in our industry. Most being over almost nearly 90% have budget purchasing authority. And we've been at this for a while. So we have market permission to lead, so that comes with gaining trust within the industry. So as I mentioned a second ago, just mentioned all of those things. Who is in the working groups right now? These are mostly ONUG board members or folks who are leaders within the industry. So we have representation from a whole group of companies that have had input into what you're kind of about to see. So like I said, very practitioner focused. The key thing about the working groups is that when we start them, the way they come to be or they get created is that we have a board meeting that occurs the day before the AI Networking Summit. Every board member brings one or two use cases to that board meeting. They present those to the rest of the board members, and then so that everyone has a good understanding of what they are. And then we put them all on kind of like, big sticky easel, kind of like the large ones, all around the room. There may be some 20 or so use cases, and we give basically only 10 little red stickies, and these are the ones that you peel off and then you can actually stick them on. A little old school, but it works because you get a really great visual when it's done. So what that voting actually does, that it basically certifies that this is what the ONUG board feels is important for not just them, because they can't solve these problems on their own. They need the industry to start focusing on that. What it also communicates is that this is propensity to buy. This is budget development for these areas that they are mostly concerned about and that they want the entire community to start focusing their minds on. So use cases built by consumers in the large enterprise, putting their requirements against them and looking to buy. So the work that we're doing in the working groups, take those use cases, which are very, is like on like one kind of bulletin or one kind of like large sticky, right? Not a little sticky, like, a big one, like an easel size. And then we start to have a lot of discussion about them. So we developed 4 working groups, and we're really active in 3 right now. The 4th one we held off for a little bit. We'll probably start that either later in the fall or early winter timeframe.
Now, Nick, if I was just going to interject for a second. So as we're going through, as the board meets, I mean, you're looking at a kind of a theme, right, that might get put onto onto a whiteboard, and people put stickies next to it. They voted, they've gotten to these, say these 3 themes here. And then the working groups really get together and refine that further, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm absolutely. Yeah. Refine it, define it, create problem statements and reference architectures and so forth. So, yeah, thank you, Peter, for that. And I think this kind of shows how the votes went. So we have, we call WG1 or Working Group 1. That's the Agentic Control Plan. That was the most concentrated and highly demanding one. There's the AI-enabled SOC. And then there's also AI network and autonomous infrastructure. So a couple of words on these before we kind of dive in, right, Peter? So one, WG2, we kind of splitting that into 2 different areas. There's the ONUG Connect work, and that has to do a lot around provisioning of wide area networking services. And then on the autonomous infrastructure, that's a real focus on the NOC. And most of this is really looking at kind of a post-Mythos, a post, patch storm world where that becomes the new norm, where in essence, operations now needs to be just like, in essence, part of a CI/CD pipeline. And so how do you get ready for that? How do you deal with that? And that's really where we're spending a lot of our time and focus. Peter, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, because I remember being in the room as we were selecting, as we went through the voting, and I think it'll be interesting for people to see kind of where we've landed and how things have started to, how we've begun to shape things through the working groups and the way that these 3 working groups sort of tie together.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. All right, great. So those are the 4. So we're going to give kind of updates, on the working groups. WG1, Agentic Control Plane, extremely important, activity. This is the most highly, needed area. A lot of this has to do with security, creating an agentic fabric as well. So we'll talk a lot about that. And then into various different domains. So there's domain 1, which is autonomous networking, which is the NOC, and then also the SOC. Peter, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think just going really back to Agentic Control Plane as being kind of the umbrella atop the other working groups. And I know there's been a lot of panic and concern, maybe that's too strong of a word, around sort of like what people have been seeing in the news recently with OpenAI and Hugging Face. I think this is really the time to begin, solving these problems, right? And that's really what the working groups are focused on, is, fact-based and approaches like this to solve problems.
Okay, so let's dive into working group 3, and this is an AI-enabled SOC. So this got a large number of votes, about 9 votes from our board members. There are like 44 companies that are in scope that are participating in this marketplace. The non-human intervention to human ratio is about 45 to 1. So we need to really start, I think, rethinking how SOCs are operated in the AI world. Now, just as a corollary, we did another podcast on autonomous infrastructure, which was focused on the NOC. So they're very similar architectures. If you've seen both of them, you'll see. But the entire operations flow is very different, and the whole, goal set and requirements and workflow and playbooks are different there as well. So they really do require different workflows, but the same architecture is valid for both of them. We knew this was the problem that the ONUG board specified. We know alert volume is exploding, hard for organizations to keep up. Machine attacks, speed of machines, hard for humans to keep up. And then also non-human, identities, outnumbering human users as well. So the whole threat landscape is fundamentally changing with AI. And so the way that we approach security in the pre-AI world is fundamentally being rethought, needs to be rethought and redone. Peter, anything to add to that?
No, I would agree. It kind of goes back to what we opened up with around kind of the mythos moment and, the patching cycles and really what we've, attacks are happening at machine speed driven by adversarial use of AI. And we need to be able to respond in a similar manner.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the reference architecture for how you AI enabled the SOC and be able to catch up with machine speed. Okay. Ready? Drum roll.
Sure.
Here we go. AI enabled SOC. So this is the reference architecture that the working group has developed. So if you listen to working group 2, everything from this part, the whole planning part, to half of this is the same. And what's really different is the agentic operations loop. But we're going to assume that you didn't see that previous working group. And so we're going to talk through the planning part of this. So Peter, I'll start and kind of like hand it off to you. Okay?
No, that sounds good, Nick.
Okay. So in the planning part, you really need to spend a lot of time thinking through and use AI tools to do this. The agentic personas. Each persona, you're going to have N different personas, each focused on doing very specific tasks, just like you have L1, L2, L3 engineers today. And within those engineers, they also are segmented in the kind of the tasks that they do. So you need to think about what kind of persona the agent is going to have, and that's going to dictate their rights that are granted to them, the policy that's associated with them as well. So persona is really important to start to build that out. Then you need to start thinking about what is the agent autonomy level. So we like to think of these as an L0 through L3. L0 is just observing, taking a look, at things that are going on, but not acting on anything. L1 is observing, but asking, then now recommending. So going up to a human saying, hey, I'm seeing this. You may want to take this action. L2 is that, okay, I'm seeing these things. I want to act upon this, mother may I. Can I do that? And then L3 is God level, meaning that it has broad access, broad visibility to take autonomous actions based upon things that are occurring, incidents or things that are occurring within the security posture of an organization. So that actually provides a really nice, way in which you can segment the various different agents, and then how you can start to gain trust in those agents and start moving them more and more towards autonomy. And then those agents are going to rely upon various different models, whether they are kind of frontier models that are in the public domain or whether they are open weight models within your own organization. So which models are you using to process a lot of security alerts, alarms, logs, and so forth? And then the important thing too is that what is the scope of the estate that is under watch. So firewalls, cloud IAM, WAFs, it's like, just what is that scope of a state? Peter,
No,
anything?
that really well said. I would say that, the important thing is that, the blueprint is the same, right? Between working group 2 and working group 3. If you saw the working group 2, that's the network autonomous operations working group. But the SOC version is deliberately a little bit different, a little bit more conservative, as Nick said, right? So that as we get into the agent enforcement and audit, there's things that the agent can do, and there's things that the agent can't do, right? So we don't want the agent rewriting detection rules or enforcement rules, for example, right? And I think the critical differentiators in box 4, where it says decide, right? So the decide gate really determines what types of actions are we going to take. We may not want to block access, right? We may not want to tip our hand to the adversary who may be within our network, maybe gathering intelligence or basic, or also eliminating key evidence that would be needed during the investigation. So we never take a blanket action, but it would be based on, sort of information security and forensic principles around, preservation of evidence, chain of custody, being able to have forensic replay, a record that would hold up. So, I mean, there's a number of different decisions, and that all goes back to the agent persona and the persona that you have granted. So I think the other thing I would add, I think, is also within cybersecurity, there are a lot of vendors now who are coming into this space with solutions that are, almost every security solution now has some type of agentic AI capability built into it. So it's really important as you're meeting with vendors. I know this happens in the SOCs that I talk to, is they're speaking with the main players, really trying to understand, what is the level of autonomy, what is the persona of the agent that's being deployed. And in some cases, it may be deployed within your data center. In other cases, a lot of security teams outsource their tier 1 SOC out to an MSSP, where they may be using agents there. And really, it's important to understand the level of autonomy. So this type of blueprint can be deployed, horizontally across different verticals, or also with partners, as well, as you're talking about MSSPs, which are very common today with SOCs.
Yeah. Awesome. It's all great points, Peter. I think maybe one thing I want to do is talk a little bit about what we show here as pattern A or pattern B, right? So you did all that planning up above, and now those agents are tasked to do various different actions within your SOC, and they need access to resources in order to do that. So everything in the red is all contained, right? And that's all about access enforcement and also audit, which we know is extremely important within all of the SOC environments. So we identify a pattern A, which is a more distributed agent to agents, kind of model, or a pattern B, which is more of an orchestrator, federated kind of model. It's almost like the agentic control plane, that could be plugged into the SOC. So on pattern A, the agents may need access to telemetry, alerts, alarms, logs, various different rule sets for various different pieces of the estate that it's managing. What are the sources of truth that the company and the organization has established? And then also access to other agents and MCP servers for tools that it may need, or to be able to spawn off tasks to various different agents. Where on the orchestration side of it, it's that the agents mostly will interact with the orchestrator to request services, and then the orchestrator will have API calls into these various different pieces on the pattern A side of things. So, but all of that needs to be documented. All of those interactions need to be, tracked observed, and monitored in real time, so that audit trails can be done, and that when regulators come in, compliance reports can be established for them. So I think with all of those tools available, then it's the agentic operations loop. And I think, Peter, you talked a lot about that, already. I'm not sure if we want to add anything in addition. The only thing I would say is that where we believe like a lot of automation can take place and should take place is in 1 through 3. So it can detect, certain signals in the infrastructure. It can investigate, and then it can propose fixes for them.
Right. I was going to say, the pivot point really is at the decide gate, and that's going to really determine, be based on the level of autonomy for that particular process within your SOC. And, as far as do you want to, continue to gather intelligence to understand, what the adversary may be doing, or do you want to, block access now? And those are some of the things that, that probably, Nick, a human will need to decide that, right? So I think that's an area where, a false positive could take down legitimate, business traffic. And in some cases, it's okay to do that. But at the same time, we don't want to lose forensic evidence. We don't want to tip off the adversary because we're still trying to understand the extent of the event. So these are some of the things that, as we bring practitioners together that run, large SOCs, they can help us sort of vet and pressure test this agentic operations loop. That's what we're really looking for next.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's basically it. So again, we have a reference architecture for the enabled SOC. We really welcome all the vendors to get involved to kind of share how this architecture can be advanced within the industry, and for practitioners to get involved to help refine it and add more requirements, and most importantly, really to be able to kind of lead the industry. With this, there'll be a lot of this at the summit in New York City, October 28th and 29th. So, Peter, any last words before we go to next steps?
No, I think we can move right to the next steps. I think we covered this slide really well.
We want you to get involved, as well. And that's really easy to do. You just come up to the onug.net/collaborative, and you'll see this page. And then on this page, you're an IT corporate or collaborative member. Just request to join the collaborative. Just click on that. You'll kind of fill out a quick form, there, and then, they'll ask you for like which working group you want to get involved in. And that's really it. And so, and then we'll get back in touch with you around getting involved. Okay. Peter, any last words?
No, I would say any questions, please reach out. Happy to answer and address any questions that people have. I think the idea is that, if we get more involvement, more practitioners involved specifically, we can really provide something that's going to be really great that you can bring back to your company.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Thank you, everyone.